Hi dear audio wizards and fellow music makers. This is the fourth chapter in this compression Bible. In the previous video, we talked about the difference between compression and expansion, upwards and downwards. We talked about look ahead in depth and about purposes of sidechain. So if any of those topics feel still not totally understood, be sure to check my previous video. Today we're going to talk about compression to create depth, program-dependent types of compressor, and feed-forward versus feed-backwards type of designs.
Feed-forward and feed-backwards or feedback compressors. And what does this mean? Feed-forward or feed-backwards refer to the place in the signal path where the signal gets analyzed to define if it's getting above or below the threshold. In the most modern compressors, the sound is entering the compressor and then it gets analyzed, and depending on the level, it enters the VCA, the volume knob, where the compression is or isn't applied. Pretty straightforward. Feed forward. On most of old school compressors like LA2A, LA3A, 1176, the signal enters the compressor, enters the volume knob, the VCA, the compressor stage, and then only is analyzed to define if it's still above or below the threshold and if the compression needs to be applied or not. Might sound counterintuitive, but there are some pretty musical uses about that. The fact is, with feed forward, once the sound gets above the threshold, it starts compressing. So it's compressing faster. It's reacting more to the transient and it's more consistent. It's more precise. And once the sound is below the threshold, it decays, and so the release is kind of more linear. While with feed backwards or feedback type of design, well, the sound is traveling first through the compressor before it gets analyzed. So as soon as the compressor starts to compress, the sound will decrease in level. So in fact, we are reaching faster below the threshold, resulting in a more exponential type of curve for the release. Remember, exponential type of decays are decays to be found more into percussive sounds, in natural sounds that decay. This is a natural behavior of sonic objects. This is why many people tend to find feed backwards type of design more musical. It's a bit more permissive and it's reacting more to the music. Beware as well that many of the feed backwards type of designs are also program dependent. One very known compressor in the hardware that is to be found in many plugins is the API 2500. You have it with Waves, you have it with UED. I know Tone Empire does it, but they didn't implement that specific feature. I think there are other manufacturers that made some clones of that. And this compressor has the specific feature to allow you to shift between feed forward or feed backwards. And so this is a nice tool to try and to listen how the compressor is changing its sound, whether it's forward or backwards. And if you don't have the 2500, there isn't even another trick. It's by using actually the sidechain input of any compressor that has sidechain, and you actually feed the sidechain by the track itself, but post compression. So actually the sound will travel through the compressor, get out of the compressor, and you say, oh, now I'm feeding the compressor with that signal, and you create a feed backwards type of compressor. So try things out, see how you like it or not, see how it reacts, because it's changing the groove, it's changing the behavior of the compressor. Many feed backwards type of compressor are also program dependent. Not all of them. Many and not all program dependent compressor are feed backwards. But bear with me. What is program dependent compressor? A program dependent compressor is a compressor where the release time is actually adjusted depending on the content material. Okay. Nice, but what does it mean in practical terms? How does this translate to the behavior of your compressor? Well, to summarize, the higher the reduction gain is applied by the compressor, the longer the release time will be in order to have a smooth release, and so you don't hear the pumping effect of the compressor. This is particularly useful to control more macro dynamics, to smooth things out and have a musical result. Of course, in today's world, many digital compressors offer this additional feature, what's called auto release, where the release is actually adapting to the amount of compression applied. But how does this translate practically? Let's take, for example, a drum loop. If you are compressing a drum loop, chances are you want the release of your compressor, the release time of your compressor to be pretty consistent, to set this up in a way the release is playing in a rhythmic ratio of the tempo, and your compressor is playing some bounce that is pushing the groove, that is helping the groove of that loop. It has to be synced. You don't want the release time to be shifting depending if there's a transient that gets a bit higher or lower, and if there's more gain reduction applied or not. But if you want to smooth things out, work on a more macro dynamic of, again, a vocal take is a good example. You might want the compressor to be a bit more flexible, not so on-off hard. So if you think about everything we said so far, the softney, the feed backwards type of designs, the program dependency, now you know how to control better all the settings of your compressor in order to have it reacting on the best way possible of your audio signal. Straight or soft, hard or not, fast or sloppy. Feed backwards compressor are a bit more sloppy on the attack time. So do you want something that is a bit blurry and floating around, or something that is really tight and precise? You don't want every time the same thing. It's always depending on the program material. But I hope with covering all these aspects, you can now have a better understanding on what to do and how to dial in your compressor so you can actually compress better. Of course, you need first to actually properly hear and understand how a compressor is impacting the dynamics of your signal and how it's impacting the sonic results.
If you enjoyed the content so far, be sure to like the video below and subscribe to my channel so I can keep making videos like this one.
compression and depth, or how to use a compressor to place the sound further away or closer to you inside your mix, because a good mix is a mix that is balanced in terms of depth, width and height of every element. And actually, one lesser known application of the compressor is actually to help you place things more forward or more backwards inside the mix. To achieve depth is actually pretty easy. The shorter the attack time of your compressor, the more transients you're going to shave off. And by shaving off transients, you're actually going to push a sound backwards in a mix. Because think about that. When something is close to you, you hear a lot of details. You know, it's crisp and there is a lot of dynamic range. Try this out on a given track. For example, I don't know, on your last track, put a compressor on your drum bus and play with the attack time while listening to the whole track and see how it is shifting the whole bus. And then maybe you can say, okay, place it on one singular element to see how it is pushing that element closer to you or pushing it more backwards.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content and that this will help bring your music to new heights. In the coming videos, we're going to talk about look ahead specifically tailored in sidechain applications and see how attack and release time are impacting the groove when you are using sidechain. So long story short, we're going to go even deeper in sidechain techniques and help you really control your compressor in order to get the perfect sidechain action. See you there.